Hello and welcome back to Academic. I'm Chris Wood and this is episode 3 of Let's Elm. In this series we're making a web application using the Elm programming language. This week we're going to refactor our update function and we're going to add the next section of the character sheet, this section here, attributes. So let's just explain this a little bit. Basically I think of this little section, the player information section, as one discrete object, right? One discrete section of the character sheet. However, when we look inside our update function, we've got individual update messages for each of these different fields, which makes them seem like separate things, but I want to collect them all together. So we're going to use a dictionary to manage the updating and the storing of these instead, and just using a single message in our update function. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to replace all of these fields in our record with a single dictionary that will manage all of these values with. So let's get started. Okay, so we've done a lot of stuff there. Let's just try and run through that. First of all, we've imported Dict. This is a module that's in core in Elm. We need to import this before we start. Now, the next thing that we've done is, if you look here, our model's changed, so our init's changed. The model now has a single field called player information, and it is of type player information. And of course, we've got empty player info that goes into the init now. So player information, we've made this type alias here. It is, and this changed a little bit as I was writing it, but this is a dict of type dict string, maybe string. Now, I don't think we've come across maybe yet, but maybe essentially this is how, in a strongly typed language, this is how you say that there might be something or there might not be something, because everything needs to have the same, it needs to have a consistent type. So in languages like something like Python, for example, you can return multiple different types from a single function. You could return an integer or you could return a none type. However, you can't do that in Elm. It needs to return the same thing, the same type every time. So to get around that, we indicate that there might be something by using maybe. And so basically what we're doing with that is it'll enable us to tell whether we've got any input for a particular field. So before somebody submits something, we want to make sure that everything's been filled out correctly. And so we've used maybe here because these are required fields. So we have a dict of type string, maybe string. This is player information. Here's the empty version of it. So we've got dict from list, and we've got our name and nothing because it starts out without nothing inside it. Nothing is part of the maybe type union. So you either have just something or nothing. So you've got name, player, cast, concept, anima, and supernal. They're all just these strings associated with nothing, and we'll make a dict from this to start with. So we can have a look in here. In our app, this is how it starts out. you can see this dict here with no values for anything. Next up, we've now got just a single message, edit player information, and it takes two strings inside it. It takes the key, which is our string here, and a value, which will be our maybe string here. When it gets this message in, it takes the key, which is called section here, and inserts that into the dict. Now, insert, how it works is if that key is there, it will overwrite the current value. If it's not there, then it will create a new key value pair. Now, we've said that we've got a string here just now, value, but we want to have a maybe string, so we want to say just value. Just value means that there is a value. Remember, it's just something, so in this case, just a string, or nothing. That's what makes up a maybe type. Now, the last section here is the old player information. This is the old dictionary, and so this function dict, it requires a key, a value, and the dictionary that is going into here. And this is a little bit different from a lot of other programming languages that have dicts inside them, because you're not accessing it with an attribute or accessing it just with a key, for example, directly. This is a function, and you need to pass everything that it needs into this function. And then we just update the model field to have this. And of course, we've had to change our input boxes as well. Now the message has changed. It's this edit player information. But now you see what I do here. We have essentially a partial application of this message. So what edit player information is, it's expecting to take its of type edit player information string, but we've given it one string, and then on input will provide the next string before it gets passed to the update function. So these are fixed: name, player, concept, anima, cast, and supernal. And then the input that the user gives, that varies each time. And this is why we can use insert here, because we know that we're going to have these fields, as long as we test thoroughly first. There's probably safer ways to do this using update. So let's try that out. Let's see if we add a value here, then hopefully you can see now we went from nothing to just Chris. So we know that we have something in this, and if we delete this out, it's still a string. We can fix this and make a catch for it. In fact, let's do that just now. Okay, so let's see if we fix that little bug there. So now here we have this, and we delete this out, and then it goes back to nothing. So essentially what's happening there is that we're passing in an empty string. In that case, it starts out as nothing, but as soon as anything gets passed, and this is including an update where it's not changed the value, it'll pass in the empty string. So although we've got nothing in that box. So what we're doing here is we're just using an if-else statement to check, is this, let's just tidy this up a little bit, we'll do a format. If it is a string that has a length greater than 0, then it's just the value, but otherwise let's put it back to nothing, because we don't want an empty string in there. And hopefully we should be the same here. So let's see, let's go back to blah and blah. So there we go, name and player. Dawn, now it's just Zen. Now this is interesting because we're starting out without a value in this, which means it's not selected. So again, let's go and tweak this. We can tweak this in our code very quickly. So instead of this being nothing here for cast, we can go Dawn as a default value. But we can't do it if we save this won't work. There we go, it's not happy, and the reason is that a string by itself is not the maybe type. Just Dawn is a maybe type. And if we do just, and the supernal we'll say is archery, then you can see everything's happy here, and hopefully when we recompile this, it'll work again. Let's get the debug back up and see. So, blah, we've got just Dawn in there, blah, blah, and our concept, warrior princess, and the anima is, we said cherry blossom left and right. Let's go for something a bit cliche. And if we change these, then you can see we can change between them. Now this is very cool because we've got a single, this makes much more sense. We're seeing this as a discrete section. And we have a single message to update this discrete section. So there's not a huge amount of repetition. Dicts are very useful. They're very useful for this. when you've got lots of very similar things. All of these are strings, and essentially we can predict that it's always going to be a string, maybe string that we're getting in. And dicts are nice. They're nice for this type of thing. They're very readable. Okay, so in preparation for working on the next section, which I might put into the next video, let's just tie this up. So this is the player information section. Let's move that into its own function so that we can start expanding out the whole view. So I've tweaked that essentially just to move where the now this is in a self-contained view for player information, which means that we can start adding things onto this. And I think that we're going to do that in the next episode. So that's it for this episode. In the next episode, we're going to be creating the attributes section using the dicts that we've just learnt about. So if you found that video useful, please consider subscribing to get all the latest videos. Like if you found it useful, comment down in the comments below, or send me a tweet on Twitter if you've got any questions. Thanks very much for watching, and see you next time.